Well, good morning, Campfire crew. This is Tony and Stella checking in from the archery range. Stella, where'd you go? Today is July the 3rd. Tomorrow will be July the 4th, which in the United States is Independence Day. So I want to take a minute and tell you what Independence Day is. So I don't hear a lot of people talk about this anymore. We all celebrate it, but what are we celebrating? So I want to take just a few minutes and tell you what Independence Day is. Independence Day is the day that the United States declared its independence from Great Britain. So back in mid-year 1775, the United States was preparing for war with Great Britain. So the United States built an army, and they set George Washington, a guy you may have heard of, as commander-in-chief over the United States, or the original 13 colonies, what was the United States, and over the military. Prior to going to war, those guys decided, before we have to go to battle, why don't we send an olive branch, or at least tell King George III of Great Britain, hey, let's try to work this out peacefully. So first of all, they built a military and had it ready. Second of all, after the military's built, let's try to talk about all of this. So they've got two options now that we can work this thing out, which King George wouldn't even read. He wasn't even willing to hear the olive branch decree. So these guys decided, the original 13 colonies had representatives or delegates from those 13 colonies. These representatives of these 56 to 60 men all met and elected a committee of 5 members to write out a Declaration of Independence. So since the olive branch thing didn't work, these guys are going to sit down and write out a decree to send to King George and let him know, we're done with this. We're no longer going to be part of a tyrannical government. We're going to be a set-aside government of our own. We're in the pursuit of happiness. We want to be free. We want to have our own rights, and we're no longer going to follow the rule of Great Britain. So these 5 men set out, and it took several weeks to write the Declaration of Independence. July the 2nd, 1776, these delegates met again to go over this decree. It took them 2 days to come to an agreement. So they had to change some wording and had to change some of the things written inside of it. Inside was 27 different grievances that the 13 colonies had with Great Britain. It's things that we're not going to do anymore. I want my own personal rights. I want taxes. It was a wide span of grievances that they had. They sent this Declaration of Independence to King George after everybody agreed on it. So I want to mention one thing about that. It was on July the 4th that they finally come to an agreement. And believe it or not, history says that all 56 to 60 men agreed to the same declaration. You can't get 60 people to agree to nothing. I don't care what you're doing, but all 60 guys agreed that this is the declaration that we're going to send him. And just FYI, King George said negatory. That would be a hard no from him, and he wasn't going to accept the Declaration of Independence. So history had to go on and be fulfilled the way that it was fulfilled. So we won our independence, and during the process of doing that, we become a free nation. So Independence Day is celebrated on July the 4th, and it has been now for a very long time. One more thing that I want to point out while we're still on the subject of being independent is the flag that you see hanging behind me. This flag is a true representation in the United States for freedom. This flag represents every individual that lives in these United States has rights and freedoms, and that flag has flown on flagpoles for a couple of hundred years now. And I want to say this, that the flag since July the 4th, 1960 was when it got the last star put on the flag. So the flag itself has 13 horizontal stripes, red, white, red, white, red, white, which is which represents the 13 original colonies in the United States. It has 55 pointed stars inside of a blue rectangular canton that's on the flag. Here's something interesting about those 50 stars. Each one of those stars represents a state that's in the United States. That flag represents every individual. So it doesn't matter what your religious preference is, what your sexual orientation is. It doesn't matter if you vote Democrat or if you vote Republican or if you vote independent. That makes no difference. What does matter is that we're all represented by the same flag. We can look at it any way that we want to look at it. We're still one people. We might not always be united. We might not always be in agreement with each other, but we're still one people under that flag. That flag represents everybody. There was men and women bled and died for us to be able to fly that flag in representation of the freedoms of the United States. I want to add this about that flag serves notice. Any way you want to look at it, it serves notice to any enemies of the United States. That flag hangs on that pole, and it represents the fact that man has gone to war one time for his freedoms, and he's not scared to go back again. That flag represents everything that we stand for. At the end of the day, that flag is a piece of cloth. But there's men and women died for you to be able to fly that flag, and to fly that flag with pride. It represents who we are as a country. We're free, we're free-minded and free-speaking individuals. That flag gives us the right to stand up and put our hand over our heart during the national anthem, or that flag represents the facts that we can protest when we feel a need that we can protest. I remember seeing a video just a month or so ago of an 80-something-year-old veteran standing in a street trying to fight a 20-something-year-old man. That 20-something-year-old man had taken down a flag and was trying to burn it in the streets. That old man was willing to fight that younger guy over that flag. And it wasn't the cloth he's fighting over. It's everything that man saw while he was in war. It's his buddies that he saw that didn't come back. It's all of the rights that he fought for you and I to have in the United States that we have today. He didn't fight that man over a piece of cloth. He fought that man over a thought. He fought that man over what was in his heart. He fought that man over that flag because that flag represents something. It's represented something then, and it represents something now, that we are a free nation. So tomorrow, on July the 4th, I want you folks to go celebrate Independence Day. And every time you pass that flag, I want you to remember that flag represents you. There's a star on that flag that represents the state that you're in right now. That star represents who you are. So take pride in it. Let's be proud to be Americans. Let's be proud to fly that flag that men and women died for us to have the rights that we have. Me and Stella appreciate you guys watching the channel. And listen, life's an adventure. Don't get caught sitting at home.